It's a major Bronx roadway that offers a glimpse into the past. The Grand Concourse from East 153rd Street to 167th Street is a historic district with landmark status. And down the road, a world-class ballpark stands tall. As News 12 The Bronx reporter Amy Yensi shows us, a stroll in Concourse Village is a step back in time.
During a hasty walk on the Grand Concourse,
when you came to the Grand Concourse, you knew you were sort of going up.
It's easy to miss the signs.
It was very exclusive and it was elegant.
Each facade hints at a golden era.
The exterior very much reflects that, of a time that's gone.
On the Grand Concourse, and named after the self-made millionaire, the Andrew Freeman home is a sight to behold. It was built in the 1920s with help from Freeman's trust money, and until the funding dwindled, it served as a free residence for the rich who lost their fortunes.
You had to have a certain background to be accepted into Andrew Freeman originally. That all stopped in 1938 when the facility closed.
From the rolling front lawn to the dark mystique of the library, complete with first edition American classics, the unique antiquity of the home is well preserved. Today, the opulence is the backdrop for the Mid-Bronx Senior Citizens Council and its free community programs. The grand ballrooms and powder rooms, once made solely for the upper class, are now classrooms and art space for all Bronx residents. But a special wing of the home serves as a bed and breakfast for those who want to reconnect with its rich past.
And just steps away from one of the most prominent symbols of Bronx history, this mural pays tribute to a more recent culture born in our borough.
Old school rap, graffiti, now aerosol art. It is the poorest areas that bring forth the most creativity.
Irma Algarin knows firsthand how poverty transformed Concourse Village. She lives in the Concourse Plaza building, which was once a first-class hotel.
Joy, good food, and nice apartments. Oh, you wanted to look your prettiest. And at that time, I was a good-looking young woman.
But as the neighborhood moved from predominantly Irish and Jewish to Black and Latino, the hotel lost its luster and clientele. In the 1970s, the city bought the property and turned it into a senior's residence. Algarin still walks through what was once a hotel ballroom that saw the likes of John F. Kennedy and Babe Ruth. She sees rusty metal beams where crystal chandeliers once glistened.
It was mostly visited by people that came to see the Yankees games.
Sports fans still flock to the Cathedral of Baseball.
I used to go every year, opening day. We had convinced our families that it should be a national holiday.
In 2006, the Yankees broke ground on a new ballpark in a parkland next to the stadium.
Yankee Stadium is sort of the Taj Mahal for the Bronx.
The Art Deco buildings may be all that's left of that time.
It represents an opportunity for people to reclaim the charm of that period.
It's just enough to inspire the belief that the good old days have yet to come. Reporting from Concourse Village, Amy Yensi, News 12, The Bronx.
It was once known as the world's largest entertainment center. Each of its 7 regions featured rides and attractions based on defining moments in American history. Today, it's the site of one of the largest shopping destinations in the borough. In this special report, News 12 The Bronx reporter Amy Yensi takes us across the country without leaving Co-op City.
On a warm afternoon in May, there's no better place to be than the amusement park. Our tour guide, a 13-year-old boy from Queens, and his Super 8 camera. The year, 1963.
It just got people to go away from the everyday toils of life.
John Bulakowski couldn't get enough of Freedomland, USA. He now lives in Connecticut, but still reminisces about his frequent trips to the Bronx.
Every noon, there would happen to be a shootout, and the bad guys and the good guys would go at it. and inevitably the good guys won.
The amusement park opened in 1960. It's 205 acres and access to the Hutchinson River rival Disneyland. From the Civil War ride in New Orleans to Chinatown and the earthquake of 1906 in San Francisco, a visit to Freedom Land was like stepping into a cross-country time machine. An innovative concept, but perhaps too ambitious.
It was very expensive to maintain. It didn't prosper the way they thought it would.
Freedom Land closed after only 4 years in 1964. Most of its rides and buildings were sold to other parks. Angel Hernandez of the Bronx County Historical Society says it's a loss for past and present Bronxites.
It taught you about how to be an American, how it is to live in America. If Freedom Land was around today, immigrants from all over the world coming to the Bronx would have came to Freedom Land for sure.
But just steps away from little old New York and its replica of the Macy's department store, the future is under construction. A new Macy's is slated to open this summer at Bay Plaza. Gary Schofer has lived in Co-op City for 20 years. She remembers when her neighborhood and the shopping mall were Freedom Land.
I always tease my husband. I tell him I might be sleeping on the same spot where I used to ride the roller coasters.
This is the Freedom Land USA Memorial Plaque. It's on Bartow Avenue near the Bartow Mall. This was the entrance to Freedom Land.
The plaque marks the last stop in a long journey for 4 devoted Freedom Land fans: Bulakowski, Mike Virgentino, Frank Adamo, and Bob Mangles. The Core Four, as they affectionately call themselves, spent years navigating the city bureaucracy. Last August, the Core Four finally got to honor Freedom Land.
That's the only vestige of Freedom Land that still exists.
Though this crane isn't the rocket a young Bulakowski enjoyed in Satellite City, Freedom Land will always have a special place in his heart. Reporting from Co-op City, Amy Yensi, News 12, The Bronx.
Great story. Okay.
It's the Bronx's 100th anniversary of becoming a borough, and we're talking about how the sport of horse racing helped the Bronx thrive for years. In this special report, News 12 The Bronx reporter Amy Yensi takes us to a charming neighborhood built on a race course.
There could be 1,000 reasons. The familiar faces, storefronts that trace family lines, a nod to heritage on every corner. There's just something about Morris Park.
So it kind of still has that old neighborhood feel to it. That's disappearing in New York.
At the Scaglione Brothers Bakery, that family feel is the main ingredient for success.
After school, it's like a daycare. All the kids are here. Now it's a geriatric center. All the old guys hanging out.
Every morning, the regulars meet to break bread.
We used to come here every morning, and we used to talk about everything that was going on. So they said we were like the Muppets.
Robert Esmond and Vito Linsalata are part of the Wall of Memories, where pictures tell the story of 3 generations. The ciabatta recipe hasn't changed since Sicily, and similar relics of tradition fill every home and shop in the neighborhood. But it almost never happened. When it opened its gates in 1889, the Morris Park Racecourse was the premier horse racing track in the country. Businessman and lottery king John A. Morris transformed the open farmland into a hotspot for high rollers and thoroughbreds.
And this is where you want to come to let off steam because there's nothing here. You could raise holy hell and you're not going to bother anybody because there's nothing here.
At its peak in the late 1800s, the track hosted the Belmont Stakes, but its declining reputation took it out of the running in 1904.
There's a lot of undesirables. They're gamblers in here and they're fixing races.
After the Belmont Stakes moved to Long Island, the track had a short stint as an auto racing track and held the country's first air show. That wasn't enough to save it.
This is the Morris Park train station. It was meant to bring people to the races, but by the time the New Haven Railroad finished building it, the race course had already been shut down. And since the droves of spectators never came, eventually the train station had to close its doors too.
The city took hold of acres of free space for those willing to take a chance on the Bronx's newest frontier.
Now, there are houses that are old, but they were moved here.
Entire homes were moved here, brick by brick.
The area was pretty much German Irish.
But not for long. In the late 1950s, Italian Americans began moving in from Arthur Avenue and other parts of Belmont. This second generation began their own journey toward the American dream. That sense of possibility lives on today.
It's probably the best neighborhood in the Bronx right now, and it's going to be even better.
Reporting from Morris Park, Amy Yensi, News 12, The Bronx.